I don't think there's a one size fits all in security. Definitely not. So there are a lot of constraints. So even in which area your company is working on, the budget that you have, that budget it's always a
Yeah.
huge issue. Which tools the company uses or which technologies the company uses. So there isn't one size fits all. And I also learned that while doing the guy, because I wanted to try to create something that you could just follow step by step. Okay, so we need a vulnerability management. These are all the steps. I'm going to install this tool. I'm going to install that tool. But you get to the point that maybe this tool is not the right tool for this company. Maybe they need something else. Maybe the way they work doesn't fit with this tool. So you always need to adapt to your use case.
Welcome to season 4 of The Elephant in AppSec, the podcast to explore, challenge, and boldly face the AppSec elephants in the room. I'm Alexandra, your host, AppSec enthusiast, and growth manager at Escape. Today's episode features Luís Fontes, who, after 5 years working with various technologies as a full-stack developer, transitioned into the AppSec world. Luís worked as an AppSec engineer at major companies like Checkmarx and then moved to IOVLabs and the cryptocurrency space. Nowadays, Luís works at Xapo, a crypto bank, and is an expert in both product security and blockchain security. In today's conversation, Luís explains why he believes we still lack clear guidance on how to build and manage effective security programs, and how he decided to create a guide to address this issue. He also shares insights into the complexities of blockchain security and the importance of understanding business logic. Plus, we'll discuss why he thinks SBOMs are overrated. If you enjoy this podcast, don't forget to subscribe and follow it on your favorite podcasting app or YouTube. It's the best way to avoid missing future episodes. And with that, get ready to hear Luís' opinions. Dive right in. Hi, Luís. I'm very excited to have you on the podcast with me today. So it's actually going to be the second episode of this season. So I'm very excited about it. And actually, this season is going to be also a little bit different with some one spicy question at the end that I didn't ask before. Yeah, I think I reached out a month ago and more. And I came through around your article in till their SEC newsletter. And actually, I think you didn't even see it. And
Yeah.
then, yeah, and kind of reached out before you knew it was there. But it was, I think, at the top of the AppSec section, and it was very interesting for me because quite often on the podcast we talk about security programs and how to establish them, and it really made sense that it's in one clear, organized way. At least it seems so for me, with the checklist and different sections, the tools that you can use, and I think especially like some of the section, and I really like the security team mindset because the culture and the mindset is something we talk about a lot. And like all different sections, they were in an actionable way. But what pushed you, to create this guide?
Yeah. Okay. So nice feedback. So thank you for that. So the idea is I wanted to have like something that if I need to start all over from scratch, I have a guideline to follow, you know? And at the same time, I noticed that a lot of teams kind of don't know exactly sometimes don't know what to do or what should go next. And my idea is to kind of have a guide that you can just go there and you see, okay, there's all of these options. What can we do next? So, or okay, I don't know, we are gonna implement MDM, an MDM solution. So what do we need to make this a success, you know? So what are the steps to implement an MDM solution? What is there anybody that did this that has like a guide, a good article to read, their pain points, their successes? How do we sell this to management? Because there's always a part that it's hard because you need budget, you need to explain why you're spending that money a lot of times, why these changes that are gonna impact everybody is needed. So the idea is kind of have all of these in a super easy way for you to just know what's my next steps or what are my next steps, what do I need to do, how do I sell it, what information is out there that I can just read and get some more information. And yeah, I think that's it, because nowadays I feel it's a little bit hard. There's so many things and everybody's talking, you need this, you need that, but you need to know what to search for, you know? So that's the
Yeah.
feeling that I have. If you need to start from scratch, you don't know where to start. And if you just go to Google or whatever, you'll find so many things that you kind of feel lost on how to implement it. And a lot of times they are like high level articles. Oh, you should do this because this is good because of this and that. But at the end, you don't get a decent explanation on what you need to do, what's the outcome, what you actually need to implement, you know? And I think we missed something like that. So on one side, I wanted to document as I learn. So if I need to do it ever again, I have all of this documentation, but at the same time, trying to guide other engineers in security or other companies to do the same thing, because I feel that it's a little bit hard nowadays to find this information.
Was it your experience as well? Because you mentioned like several times it's very hard to start from scratch to find information. Did you have to build the program from scratch, and that's how it resonated with you?
Yeah, so that's a tricky one. So I think I never started everything from scratch. But you get to a point that there's something going on already. So there's some security things implemented in a company, but there's many more that need to be implemented with time, you know. And sometimes if you don't have, for example, good guidance, you don't even know where to turn next. You don't know what you should be implementing. You're just looking at vulnerabilities. You're just saying no to somebody because that's what security teams do, right? So you can't do that. You kind of you're not doing your job right, I would say, right? So if you are at that point, something is failing, and I felt for a long time that I missed something. I didn't know what to do next. My job was just reviewing vulnerabilities, sometimes doing some code reviews, and again saying no, you can't do that. And it gets to the point that it's even for me, it was also frustrating because I wasn't feeling like I was doing something useful. It felt like, or either I wasn't doing anything, or when I was, it was just boring because it was always more of the same thing. So yeah, to some point I passed through that, but even now, so we have tons of initiatives to do, probably for a few years. But when you start something from scratch or a new initiative, it's like, okay, what do we want? What do we need? How are we going to implement this? And you still feel lost. You know what you know what you want to do and why, but sometimes you don't know how to sell it. You don't know how to push things to be on board with you, or just the details. It's like you have the big picture, but you don't know what actually needs to be done to get to that place, you know.
Okay, I see. Yeah. So you kind of in the beginning you felt like you didn't have the sense of purpose as well, in a sense like every day it's a little bit more of a routine. But how would you recommend someone to actually find that sense of purpose? Because you also mentioned that it changed for you. So did kind of the structured approach help, or what changed?
I think it's the mindset, you know. So this is something that you start getting with time. So if you're just there and doing always the same thing, you feel that everything is fine. But for example, if you get hacked, then questions start arising. It's like, why were we hacked? Why this happened? And you start to see that if you have a critical thinking, you start to see, well, maybe we don't have this, maybe we don't have that. And you start adding things to your list. We need to do this. We need to implement this control and this and this. And when you start getting to that point, you start creating a huge list of things to do. That's already too late, right? So you're being reactive. So something wrong already happened and you need to
I mean,
try to fix
security
it.
is often reactive, you know?
It is, yeah, that's for sure. But you should try to aim a little bit to catch things before they happen, right? And I think that's the part that is missing. It's the guidance to get to that point. You need to, and again, I think this is something that you start getting with experience. You start having this critical thinking of what can go wrong here. How can we improve this process? What can we add on top of this? And if you start doing this, I'm pretty sure you'll have like a pipeline for a few years. Unless you have a huge team that can just do everything, you'll most likely have a pipeline for a few years to come.
Yeah, I think even huge teams sometimes have a pipeline
Yeah,
for
yeah.
2 years, but because of different
That's true.
reasons, you know, it's just the reasons are different behind it. But do you think that sometimes, you know, depending on organization, like one size fits all approach does not always maybe work? Like how someone, let's say, should use your guide to, you know, tailor it to their security programs?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I don't think there's a one size fits all in security. Definitely not. So there are a lot of constraints. So even in which area your company is working on, the budget that you have, that budget it's always a
Yeah.
huge issue. Which tools the company uses or which technologies the company uses. So there isn't one size fits all. And I also learned that while doing the guy because I wanted to try to create something that you could just follow step by step. Okay, so we need a vulnerability management. These are all the steps. I'm going to install this tool. I'm going to install that tool. But you get to the point that maybe this tool is not the right tool for this company. Maybe they need something else. Maybe the way they work doesn't fit with this tool. So you always need to adapt to your use case. And that's, for example, why I think that security teams should have developers or the security engineers should know how to develop because at the end, you can buy all the tools, but they won't just work out of the box for you. And you either make the entire company change to fit the tools you buy, or you'll
Hmm.
need to do integrations, or you need to develop your own tools to accommodate your needs. So it's really hard to get a solution that just works for everybody. And we still see a lot of companies doing their own tools because they are filling a gap they have internally, right? So the way I ended up structuring the guide was high level points of what you need to do. So there is no specific tools. So I'm not assuming you're going to use tool X, Z. I'm not going to assume that you have budget or not. So the idea is these are the outcomes. This is what you need to do. And this
Hmm.
is the nice to have that you want. So from there on, it's up to you to figure out how you do it. I also try to point to, as I said, to articles of other companies that implemented that or had the same struggles so that you can learn from people that went through the same pains that you're going to or that you want to go to eventually. So yeah, I think
Yeah, I think most of the tools that you've recommended were free tools as well. Was there like a specific reason behind that? Maybe to help firstly those who do not have the budgets in place?
not specifically, but I have to admit I like open source tools, especially in vulnerability management, because most of the
Defect
times, or
Dojo.
for example, I don't use Defect Dojo, but yeah, it's a great tool. The issue that I see is that and now with ASPMs, which is also a new thing,
Yeah.
I think the tools are not quite there yet, you know? And sometimes it may look like, oh, this tool works great, but when you start implementing it in your company and start to adapting the tool to your needs, a lot of times the tools lack something, okay? Or not just the fact that they lack something. If you want to reduce your false positive rates because you want to spend as less time as possible managing vulnerabilities, right? If you have a vulnerability that you see, oh, this keeps showing up in different projects and it's false positive, or this keeps showing up because the way we code something creates this false positive. You want to tweak those things, and a lot of times for example, it's hard to tweak those rules. A lot of ASPMs, for example, don't allow you to tweak rules. You either enable
Mm.
or disable rules. So this is just an example, and the integration sometimes it's also a pain. I feel that, for example, integrating with Jira, it's complicated most of the times because they push to Jira, but then if you add a comment on Jira or if you change some status on Jira, they don't go back to your vulnerability management application a lot of times. If you use
Mm-hmm.
custom
Yeah,
fields, so
it's
for
not
example,
demo.
exactly, we use a lot of custom fields, and when you start using custom fields, it's even harder to do this sync between tools. So I think that if you end up with a lot of paid tools, you end up, because they are so closed, you end up with silos, and it's hard to just work with 10 silos at the same time, right? Because then developers are complaining because, oh, I need to log in this tool and I need to log in this tool, and this information on this tool has one thing, but in this other says something different. So I'm a fan of having like open source tools that you can just grab, adapt to your needs, because they are usually a little bit more open. And I'm not saying from the source code point of view, but they allow you more customizations. And if you build on top of that, you can end up with a tool that fits all of your needs, and you can end up with something that just works for developers, just works for engineering or for the entire company. So I always try to provide open source tools because of that. And also for the fact that security doesn't always have the budget to buy tools, and security tools are super expensive compared, for example, with most developer tools. Security tools are much more expensive, so it's hard to get budget to just buy everything. So I always like to get some open source tools as an alternative, because at the end, for the budget, and probably you can just tweak that tool and the way it works to your needs.
And what if there would be, like a, let's say, commercial tool where the price is okay, but that would also like allow you to build, very custom things on the top of it, like Versal for security engineering or something like that. Would it something that would be useful or exciting for you?
Of course. So there are a few tools like that out there. So even for example the SandGraph version, which I refer and it's you have the free version and you have the pro version that still allows you all the customizations from the free and a lot of new things on top of that. I think that's the best of the two worlds. So if you have a tool that you don't need to worry about somebody else it's updating it for you, it's adding the features for you, it's working with the integrations, everything for you, and it's even hosting for you, which is fantastic and allows you to customize everything to your needs. It's just the best scenario at the end, right?
Yeah, I mean, then it's a lot of flexibility, in whatever you want to implement, whatever you need, and especially like for AppSec, I think a lot of people come from software development backgrounds, so they love to build. That becomes very important and very integral part of what you can do, and especially like with AI agents now, you can see more and more people building. Then I think you worked also recently on a project, something that's
Yes.
related to AI and Slack, if I'm not
Yeah, it
mistaken.
was a really cool project actually. It was the first serious project that I was working with AI. And the idea was to help the security team do routine operations, so sometimes somebody just reach out to the security team, hey, we need this, and it's just a security team that has access to something. Or some operations that we do internally, sometimes to debug, to understand why an alert was popped up. Is this a real issue that we need to worry about? So we started adding some features to a Slack bot that we can just use to do all of this automatically. There's still a lot of concerns with the security of AI. So, for example, in our case, we didn't open the bot to everybody. So if somebody comes and asks us something in Slack, we just invoke the bot, which we are the only ones that can use the bot, and we ask the bot to do something for us, for example, and we have all the cool things. So we are using MCPs. We have the confirmation of the tool. So you get a pop-up in Slack saying, hey, I want to execute this tool with these parameters. Is this okay? And we still see a lot of hallucinations from AI.
Wow.
So having those confirmations is great. And we kind of restrict the accesses that the bot has so that we don't do something wrong by mistake
Or about the data that, how do you, for example, the accesses on the data, is it something that you also restrict, or accesses on the usage? Because you mentioned you use also like MCPs, for example, which is
Yes.
right now all the hype, all the new technology, and it's kind of not everyone maybe, and even if it's like a lot of people say it's, well, in a nutshell, it's an API for AI, but still maybe you don't understand all the security implications of it. How, for example, in the guide, when you have already some program and some checkboxes, all the time you get new technology, everything that's exciting. Do you think it's sometimes just like never ending cycle of learning and also like implementing guardrails, or maybe even managing, security, like putting out the fires, all the
Yeah.
time?
No, it definitely is. From my side, I like that, but it feels like you're running after the train. So there's always new stuff coming out. Even with this bot, I started developing a few months ago, and then there were new APIs with cooler stuff, new models. Then MCP came in, and we were always running after these technologies. And security, it's a bit like that, right? It's a game of cat and mouse, and you're always behind. That's
Hopefully
that's
you're
the
not a
hardest
mouse.
part. Yeah, but you're always running behind. But you need to constantly learn new technologies, new attacks. So it may be overwhelming with time, but at the same time, at least for me, it's interesting. You keep learning new stuff. You keep updating your knowledge, because if you're doing the same thing for, I don't know, 10 years, at least for me, it would be boring. And with new technologies coming out, you never stop. And there is always something new for you to learn, which is great.
Yeah, I think for sure, like it's well, software development, security. Like I think security is maybe even sometimes more advanced in terms of learning how many new things you have to learn. Because if you're, let's say, developer of a specific framework, you build
Exactly.
applications in Java, you just have that. You have to think
That's a
about
great
like,
point. Yeah,
yeah,
that's a great point because I've been through that, So uh, I think that for you to work as a application security or product security, you need to be really good at a lot of different things because you're gonna go to a developer and say, "Hey, this is wrong." You're not gonna say it like this, but
yeah.
you're gonna tell him, yeah, this there's an issue here, or you shouldn't do this like in this way. And a lot of times you're talking to experts on a specific framework, on a specific language. They've been doing that for years, and you just go in and you say, hey man, this is wrong, yeah. And sometimes you don't even test it, you just look at it and you say, oh, there's a vulnerability here just by looking at the code. But they have context that you don't have, and they say, no, this is not true because there's something in the background doing this and that and that, and at the end this is not a vulnerability. And I had a lot of these issues
How did you
when
deal with them?
Oh, it was hard. You need to be open-minded. So I think in security, when you're saying something to somebody, it's not a matter of who's right. It's a matter of what's safe. And it's kind of, you can be proud, but you need to understand when you're wrong or when you can be wrong, and not just try to be right all the time. So a lot of times I just came to developers and I told them, hey man, there's this issue, and they were always coming back at me and saying, no, this is not an issue because of this, because of that. And for me, it was new frameworks that I never saw anybody using it. I still
Okay.
that was the only time I saw somebody
Which
using those
ones?
frameworks. I don't even remember the name, to be
Okay.
honest. Yeah, but I know it was in JavaScript/TypeScript, but it was a
Mm.
really exotic framework, so I never worked with that. And the developers were just saying, no, this doesn't happen because of this and that and that. And for me, it looked weird, but I had to dig deeper. I had to study the framework. I had to read a lot of documentation, testing it by myself to at the end come to the conclusion, yeah, the guys were right. And it's a lesson learned because a lot of times you just look at the code and you think, oh, there's a vulnerability here. But
Mm.
without you having the full context, you may be wrong. And for example, nowadays I prefer to just test everything or just ask. So I don't start from the point there's an issue here. It's like, hey
Mm.
guys, I see this. Can this be an issue in this situation or in that situation? You start from the point that it's more like an open discussion
Mhm.
instead of saying this is wrong and this is something that needs to be fixed. Because at the end, developers will most likely know the technologies and the code better than you do, but you still need to understand a lot of different things to be able to have these conversations with them. So it's tricky.
Yeah, I think quite often they might know the code, but they don't specifically know whenever something is how something can be exploited. At least
Yeah,
that's what I
exactly.
hear, in the conversation, because it's hard sometimes when you come more focused on building things, how something actually, what like hole you can find to actually go and exploit certain piece of code. And if you've never had, your own, I don't know, pen testing experience or actually
Yeah.
try to break the application, which is I think that is what I hear just get, introduced in universities. And before that was not the case. And it's just very to do. And I think you worked as well, like quite extensively, in blockchain. And there you have your own set of vulnerability. Reason mentioned, I think it was like couples of years ago when I just started, I wrote an article was together with someone on, dApps and Web3 security. And the person that with whom I was writing this article, I think he mentioned that like there is big misconception about dApp security. Like most people like think that breaches only happen on smart contracts, and but they also happen actually on the application layer, and sometimes you also like on the APIs, and it's kind of like overlooked because the technology is so new and it's kind of incomprehensible for a lot of people. I think for most people, it's still like even crypto is a very, very far stretched notion. So do you think like it's true? What challenges have you seen there?
To be honest, blockchain it's really hard in my
Mm.
opinion. I think that yeah, as you said, it was something really new, and maybe it still is. And the challenges are completely different from what we are used to. And if you're trying to do something truly decentralized, which nowadays there isn't that many people doing it, but if you're trying to do something truly decentralized, there's a lot of challenges that you need to overcome. And even a lot of limitations. So I remember, for example, that I was once looking at a smart contract. It was around 100 lines of code, nothing special. But it took me quite a few hours to review everything in detail, because you really need to understand every single line of code, because a lot of times the issue is not a vulnerability like, well, you don't have SQL injection, but it's not something like an SQL injection or XSS. It's business logic, right?
Yeah.
And as soon as that it's in the blockchain and dealing with a few thousands or millions of dollars or any other currency, that can be a big issue, especially if you don't have a way of updating the contract, which there are also pros and cons. If you want
Mm.
it to be truly decentralized, you don't want to be able to change it. So it's complicated. And at the end, you have the business logic part is the one that a lot of times fails, for example, in smart contracts. So you need to be super careful reviewing everything. And it's not, a lot of times it's not a matter of, oh, there's a bug, let's fix it. Because a lot of times you can't just change the smart contracts depending
Yeah.
on what you're going with. So it needs to just work perfectly from day one, which is complicated. But yeah, I think the smart contract itself is not the only issue. Everything that runs on top of it can also be an issue. So for example, if you have oracles pushing data to smart contracts, I've seen a few issues with oracles as well. And even the APIs that you build on top of smart contracts can also be problematic. The entire flow from start to finish can have different ways of attacking it, right?
Mm.
But it's super complicated in my opinion, it's super complicated to make it right.
Do you think, like, because you mentioned you've reviewed like every single line of code
Yeah.
yourself, is there tools right now? What would be the best tools to use to actually automate it? Is it the ones that you build yourself?
Well, yeah, so you have tools for static analysis, for example, but when you're trying to review business logic, it's a bit harder to automate it. Maybe now with AI, you can maybe ask for
Yeah.
some reviews, but it's I would say it's still a little bit hard to get all the business logic right and make sure it's working as expected. If you're just trying to find, for example, an integer overflow, which can be a massive issue in smart contracts, or could have been. Nowadays it's not as easy to happen, but that's easy to find with static analysis. But checking if the user has permissions to do something, or um, checking the technology itself. So if you're pushing, I don't know, I remember an example of ENS, for example, so the naming service for the
Mm-hmm.
addresses, right? In Ethereum. So you can, for example, you have issues. So for example, let's say I try to buy an ENS. If somebody sees that I'm trying to buy, I don't know, Luís dot something, I don't
Yeah.
remember the extension. But if somebody sees that in the blockchain and says, okay, so I'm gonna try to buy it and I'm gonna pay a higher fee, they are gonna buy that domain, and they are kind of dodging me, because I won't be able
Mm-hmm.
to buy that. And if they see,
Yeah.
oh, this address keeps sending requests, so I'm gonna keep paying higher fees and do everything that they are trying to do. So there's all of these kinds of issues that it's harder just to analyzing the source code to find, or just doing some static analysis to find you. So you need to understand the business logic of it. Is it something that can be an issue for the user? If you're just pushing some random data, this is not an issue. But if you're just trying to buy, in this case, the address, somebody else can just go in and start buying them, and dosing you to some
Okay.
extent. So all of this logic, it's really hard to find out with static analysis, for example.
What about dynamic analysis?
I'm
I'm partial to that, so
not sure. I would say that for some cases it could also be hard.
Mm.
I guess AI could help a lot there, but to be honest, I haven't tried these use cases with it.
Okay. It could be definitely interesting to try. Yeah, at least. So now on my side, I think to run even a test like I don't know if it exists deliberately vulnerable application, smart contract. I don't know if it would be possible to do that because we have like a lot, the gin and juice for front end or something like the front end a little bit available app, or for GraphQL we have our REST APIs that I know of, but could be also interesting to have like a vulnerable app to test it out, the complex business logic flows there. So yeah, we're approaching at the end of the podcast, and I have a new section there. So one question that I have used to ask before in previous season. So what is your least favorite security buzzword and why?
Yeah, so I have an issue with SBOMs.
Okay, why?
I'm gonna be controversial. I'm gonna cause yeah. I think there's a lot of fuzz for SBOMs since the hack with I'm trying to remember. I don't remember the name of the company, but yeah. So there has been a lot of buzz about SBOMs and a lot of tools generating SBOMs and everything, but I haven't seen actually actionable actions with the SBOMs. You know,
Mm.
so it's like okay, we have an SBOM. Now what? How can we use the SBOM to to prevent an attack, for example? I think right now we are really good at collecting information for SBOMs, but I don't see good actionable or good actionable operations action whatever
Yeah.
for it. Maybe it can be lack of knowledge, but I feel that it's a buzzword that it's out there and everybody says, "Oh, we need it," but I haven't seen the real value of using S bombs. So I've been using, for example, asset inventories. We have, for example, all the dependencies of the projects we used documented there, so we don't need anything extra. And if there's a vulnerability on a known library, you just need to go to our asset inventory and list it, the projects that use that library, and that's it. So we are going to a point that we are having fencing standards for SBOMs, a lot of tools for it, and I still like to see how we can properly use the SBOMs proactively. It's more like a reactive thing, you know.
Okay, interesting. I have not heard SBOMs as list their security buzzword yet, so it's the first one. And there is one question that I always also ask that came through all the season. If there would be one book that you could recommend, it can be either security book or not, to someone who especially, just starting in security, what would it be?
Yeah, so there's a security book that I loved, that it's Countdown to Zero Day. Yeah, so the book basically explains the Stuxnet malware. So it goes on. So it has chapters that explains the discovery part of Stuxnet and the research on it and what it did, and on the other side it explains the political motives for Stuxnet. As a security engineer, I was interested in the research part, and the book is really good explaining the details of Stuxnet. um you don't feel that it's somebody that doesn't know what they are talking about, so they really know what they are talking. They really know what they did a really good job at researching everything, and I even learned quite a few things that I didn't know about Stuxnet. And it's also a good book to show to people that hacks are it's not just a Hollywood movie. If you tell Stuxnet's story to people and the details of how it worked, everybody's gonna tell, "Oh, that's an only movie thing. It's Hollywood stuff," and it's not. It's a nice book to recommend to people and just say, "Hey, read this." And this happened like 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
At this point, and it's still a super sophisticated hack that we haven't seen many like this one. So it's not a Hollywood movie, and it's
Maybe it
good.
should be.
Maybe, yeah, maybe it should. But it's good to give people awareness that these kinds of things happen, and when they do, it's really hard to be prepared, because a lot of times people it's just not they are not gonna target us, or
Yeah.
we are too small to be targeted. Or nobody cares about us.
until they do, and you
Exactly.
have ramifications. Well, sometimes it's true if you're very, very small, it's not going to be the case, but sometimes, it is the case, and then it escalates. Especially it escalates if other people are using your software, and then
Yeah,
it quickly
exactly.
goes exponentially.
Actually, I always think that the smaller businesses are the easiest to hack, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And the supply chain we've seen lately, there has been a lot of supply chain attacks, and that's the easiest way, or one of the easiest ways right now to compromise a big company. You find the weakest link, a small company, and you just go from there. So yeah,
For sure. I think that's what we've seen. Had a lot of discussions in it last year, especially with what happened with the CrowdStrike as well, and then exit backdoor, and a lot of supply chain, for sure. Well, thank you so much, Luis, for coming on the podcast.
thank
It was
you.
a pleasure chatting with you, and I'll put all the links, to your program, to your website, to your new blog, The Security Vault, as well. So, everything is going to be there. So, thank you so much for coming and sharing your knowledge. It
Yeah,
was fun.
thank you for having me here.